So we're delighted to be here in Teagasc in Newford today. With 180 students here learning about suckler production systems and earlier finishing the slaughter, along with a number of different stands for asset water quality, emissions, finishing cattle, fodder budgets and all that. So it's great to have all the students here today, and just shows the interest that is in the agricultural sector. We also had a forum as well where we had Danny Doyle, the 2023 Teagasc Student of the Year. We also had Sarah Burke, who's doing a PhD there in Grange, and we also had Stephen Frend, the manager here in Newford as well, talking about his daily work and what's involved in managing a large suckler farm. And we also had Cora Hogan there as well, who's a AandDawn Meats graduate as well. So great to see all the different sectors being represented, and I suppose how the different sectors work together, from research to growing the crops to feeding the animals to processing and looking for new markets in relation to beef as well. So and it's the Newford herd is run in conjunction with Teagasc, AandDawn Meats and McDonalds.
It's great to see there's such an interest in agriculture, with all of you doing different courses throughout the country. We'd like to compliment Teagasc, Dawn, McDonald's and everyone here as well for the fantastic show that you've put up as well today. A lot of organisation, a lot of emails and calls went in to make today possible, so well done to everyone involved. I suppose the main focus of this part of it is, look, there's a lot of young people here, a lot of different options, courses. The agricultural sector is of vital importance in our rural economy. There's a vast array of jobs, sectors, services. I did ag science myself a few years ago, and I went on and worked with Teagasc then, and I did a master's last year. So there's loads of different opportunities. Just to give you an idea, people in my year there was people went on with Teagasc, the Department of Agriculture, the different meat factories, pharmaceuticals. Some people went on to do the HDIP to become ag science teachers. I'm looking at two astute colleagues here, Nikki and Francis Curran there, who went on to do PhDs as well. So there's a load of different opportunities there, and you can start 5, go to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 or whatever, but there's a great opportunity for a lot of people out there. So look, today will give you a good taste in relation to how the students and the graduates here, what they've gone on to do, what they have done, and you might pick up a bit of information off them. So we're covering a different, I suppose we're going to do a bit on tillage, research, managing farms, and working in industry as well. So we're delighted to have a great bunch of people here. We have Cora Hogan, we have Stephen Frend, we have Danny Doyle, and we have Sarah Burke. So each have a completely different story to tell, and have an awful lot achieved in a very young or a short period of time. So maybe firstly, Cora, we might start with you. So you might tell us maybe a little bit about your background, and I suppose the importance maybe, Cora, of not having to come from a farming background to pursue a career in agriculture. So maybe you might give a little background into yourself and maybe how you started with Dawn.
Yeah, so I'm from County Waterford. I was living there till I was about 9, and I moved up to County Down for 10 years and came back to Waterford for college then. I studied the level 7 agriculture and the level 8 land management in FCTU Waterford, which was a bit of a surprise to some people because I wasn't exactly from a farm background and wasn't reared on a farm. So I kind of knew in the first few weeks, especially the practicals in Kildalton, that I was a bit behind in some of the practicals, and I was crossing my fingers hoping nobody's going to ask me questions. But I caught up fairly quickly and started working with on my uncle's farm. He's running a tillage and suckler enterprise with a bit of contracting as well, and I just started working on local dairy farms also. So I had a nice mix of kind of milking and feeding calves, and then a bit of driving and things as well with the contracting, which was good. And so I finished the level 8, and then I started my graduate programme with Doyle Meats in September of last year. I originally applied to be a commercial graduate, and I was hoping to go into the sales and planning team. But the good thing about the graduate programme is you do different rotations in the different departments. So you spend a bit of time on the floor, firstly, so that you know what you're talking about when you do go up to the sales office. And I actually really enjoyed my time. I was in the bone hall for 2 months, and then I progressed up to the sales office then. And I was up there for about 2.5 months, but just kind of found I was more drawn to the production side of things. And that's the other good thing about the graduate programme is, as well as having a manager, you have your mentor as well. So I was kind of filling my mentor in as I went along about what I was finding more interesting and where I felt my strengths were. And in January then I swapped to operations. So a lot of my time would be spent in the bone hall, abattoir and lairage, but you'd also be working really closely with our food safety and quality, environmental teams and things like that. And I've also had the opportunity to get trained up in lean management. So I've done the yellow belt and I've started my black belt there just in September through UL. If anybody's not sure what lean management is, it's basically a way of thinking of improving processes through eliminating waste and continuously improving any small steps that you can, which I find really interesting because you have such a variety across the site into different areas, and you're just working with different people all the time, just keeps it interesting. And as well as that, there's a good few graduates around as well across HR, accounts, production, sales on our site as well, which keeps things interesting. And I'm also doing a master's part-time with SCTU, the biological and organic agriculture.
Very good. And I suppose, why did you pick a graduate programme, or is it something you always had planned to do, or how did you end up picking Dawn Meats graduate programme?
It was actually, I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but it was a grad fair. I actually met Michael, who's over there, did a good job. And what stood out to me was the variety that you do your rotations regardless of kind of what programme you're doing, to just get a better understanding of the business overall. So that was what initially drew me to it. And just the kind of first impression with the lads at the stand as well, compared to some others that we speaking on the day, I just thought I'd fit in there a bit better, and just gone very well since, so all good.
Very good. Stephen, a lot of work I'd say put in to get today possible, fair play as well. You've had a lot of busy year, I suppose, moving the farm and all that from Newford to here. I suppose firstly, maybe before we get into maybe managing the farm, you might tell us maybe a little bit about your own background, maybe the course you did and how you ended up becoming the farm manager here in Newford.
Yeah, so I'm Stephen Frend there, and I'm from Tumivara in Tipperary, from a suckler beef and sheep farm at home. Like Cora there, I went to WIT as it was when we were there, SCTU now for 4 years and did ag science. Spent probably nearly half our time out in Kildalton with Joe O'Day and all the other lads out there. It's probably the highlight of the course out in Kildalton. Finished up there in 2022, and the other andDawn Meats and Teagasc farm that's below in Tipperary, the Tipperary Dairy Calf to Beef farm. I know probably some of you will be going there now in the next few weeks again for another open day. But that was being started up around the time that I finished college in May 2022, and they were having interviews, and I went down for one of them interviews. And I suppose when the lads heard my background and stuff, so I was from more of a beef and suckler side at home. They said that they maybe more suited up here in Athenry, so I got the boot up to Athenry to manage Newford. And actually another lad from, I was in your class, Cora, he was in our class in WIT anyway as well, got the job down there. So yeah, Jack, between the three of us out of the one spot in the one, within 6 months of each other, so that's how I came to be up here anyway.
Very good. And how do you like the managing the farm? I suppose, you know, you've obviously had a good background into sucklers yourself, coming from a farm and through the course as well. I suppose, how is the managing going for you? Was it something you had seen yourself doing after qualifying, or?
Yeah, it was. I was never really that interested in having a full-time office job or anything like that, and Dad is still fairly young at home, like, so I had to get something part-time somewhere along the line. So managing a farm was always something I was interested in, and I suppose it's hard to find a suckler farm to manage as such. Like, there's a lot of dairy farm manager jobs, but not so many dry stock or suckler ones. But when this came up, then it was a grand opportunity, like, and I think it's going fairly well anyway. It's just, I suppose, ask around there today, maybe some of the lads there will tell you better than me, but I'm happy enough anyway. Yeah.
No, very good. And I suppose it's a very busy year in terms of, I suppose, a big move in terms of Newford moving the farm from Galway to here.
Yeah, it was a busy year, all right. It was saying to the people there earlier on, like, you think maybe it's just a case of load up the stock and bring it over and away you go again, but it is slow out process, and by the time you get everything the way you want it running, it takes time. Even the likes of getting herd numbers and stuff sorted and things like that, and organising new accounts with people and all that sort of stuff. And I was saying to someone there earlier on, if any of you ever want to get a herd number in the next few years, I'd say get it started as soon as possible, because it does take a while to get things sorted, but we're up and running now fairly well, I think, and it's going well for us so far. So.
Very good. Well, Danny Doyle is beside you there, and congrats to Danny on becoming the 2023 Student of the Year. A mighty accolade to have. So I suppose you might tell us you're coming from a slightly different background, mainly tillage. You're a Kildare man. I suppose it's probably interesting in the fact that when you finished secondary school, you maybe started doing an apprenticeship, and then you realised that agriculture was where you wanted to be. I suppose maybe just a little bit of yourself and maybe how you came back to agriculture.
Yeah, so I'm lucky enough that my father and my uncle are both fairly young, so when I done the leaving cert, there was no major panic to kind of come straight home. So with COVID and the whole lot, I kind of said, right, sure, I'll go and try an apprenticeship, see how I get on. Didn't take long, kind of first couple of weeks I knew, right, pack this in, headed for home. And signed up for Kildalton, then done crops and machinery. With that, got to do a lot of travelling for placement and the whole lot. And I suppose here we are now. So I'm at home full time. Kind of blessed to be in a position where I am able to go home to sustain that at home. And that's the plan, I suppose, going forward, is to stay at home and try and expand. Being a tillage farmer, I suppose we're in a good industry now for expansion. The government will eventually, properly get serious about expanding the sector. So I think the future is bright for us going forward in terms of getting bigger and expanding because of the sustainability of what we do. So I suppose that's the plan going forward for us.
I suppose policy is probably, an extremely important part of agriculture, looking at the different grants, the different reforms, where the money is coming from. You also got the opportunity to visit Brussels, where a lot of the legislation is obviously brought into power. How did you find your trip over there?
Oh, it was savage. I was very lucky to be one of 4 of the first recipients of the Keane Mooney Future Farm Leaders Programme. I think that could be expanding out now to all of the Teagasc colleges. It started in Kildalton, named after Keane Mooney, who tragically passed away. He was in my own year, and happened again this year. But I think it's going forward to work out to all the other colleges, make it a much bigger programme. But sure, it's great to go out and see what goes on out there, because it's easy to kind of sit back here and think that, look, sure, they're out there doing but it's kind of making decisions that are fairly bad for us, but a lot goes into the decisions, even whether they're good or bad. There is a lot of thought that does go into them. So I suppose it's interesting to see where the idea is good or bad, where they come from.
Okay, very good. And we have Sarah as well. We're delighted to have Sarah. So Sarah, you started off doing ag science in UCD, and then you went on to do a PhD. I suppose maybe firstly, what maybe a little bit on your own background. You're from a farm in Sligo as well. Maybe a little bit on the farm, and maybe why you decided to do a PhD after doing your degree.
Yeah, so I am from just outside Ballyhaise, County Sligo. My father is a suckler farmer. He's, I suppose, a full-time contractor, but suckler farmer on the side. So I always grew up around the suckler farm, and we even had sheep for a short number of years. My uncle as well is a dairy farmer, so I was kind of always surrounded by farming, and I kind of knew from a fairly young age that I wanted to do agriculture. I kind of liked the hands-on side, and I also liked the science behind it. So that's, I suppose, first of all, how I ended up in UCD. Maybe just alongside that farming, in the last year or so, I set up my own herd number. So I'm at a stage now where I'm trying to decide if I want to maybe expand on the numbers or else go into organics. So there's always kind of opportunities and options there within suckler farming to change the enterprise that you're in or alter it slightly, and that's kind of a crossroads I'm at the moment. So I went to UCD and I picked animal and crop production. The placement there is about 8 to 9 months long, and it's really good. You get a great kind of grasp of everything. So you cover pigs, dairy, sheep, the whole lot. Tillage as well. Obviously, being from Sligo, I wouldn't have had an opportunity to be on a tillage farm otherwise. And while on my placement, I did placement on the UCD Lions farm. I did my dairy placement there. And while I was there was obviously loads of PhD students and master's students. They gave me a great opportunity to ask questions, see what the life of a PhD student would be like, what research is out there, and what research involves and how much work is involved. I also did my tillage placement on Oak Park, the Teagasc crop research farm. Like I said, wouldn't have had an opportunity to visit a tillage farm otherwise, really. And again, I got a great insight into research, the work that was involved, and I suppose the type of work it is. It's very sort of different work to normal farming in a way. I suppose throughout my time in UCD, I kind of did have an idea that I did want to do maybe a master's or a PhD. I hadn't decided, and I suppose while I was on placement, that's when I kind of decided, yeah, I'm happy enough to take on 4 years and do a PhD, and that's how I came to be in Grange. So when I was picking a PhD, or I suppose kind of keeping an eye out for options, I knew I wanted to stay within kind of most likely within cattle. I kind of had left myself open to sheep maybe as well, but I was mostly interested in suckler farming, and then kind of grassland as well. So we kind of all know now that grassland management is kind of important to reduce your costs on the farm. It's very important. So I found a PhD in Grange that involved both grassland management and suckler beef, and that's what I'm at now. It's looking at grass clover swards versus multi-species swards, and it's using late mature and suckler bred animals. So
very good. And you're in your final year at the minute, so you're writing it up at the minute, so
yeah.
Probably a bit different this compared to the trial work.
Yeah, definitely. So there's kind of 2 phases in a PhD, or same with a research master's as well. You kind of have your outdoor phase, which is your trial work, so that involves grass cuts, weighing cattle. Basically you're farming full time, but it's research and it's really enjoyable. It's really, really good. I love that. And now in the last few months I've been chained to a desk trying to figure out how to write it all up now. So I suppose that's one thing to bear in mind if you are considering doing maybe a postgrad after your degree, is you can have the outdoor element and you can really enjoy that, and you can also have the indoor element as well, which is, depends on who you are, it might be quite as enjoyable, but it's very important. That's probably the most important part as well. So yeah, trial work, really good, and you learn so much. It's real hands-on experience.
Very good. I suppose Stephen mentioned there as well getting a herd number. So I suppose just to give you a small bit of information, that the ER1 and the ER 1.1 form would be the forms there to set up as a herd number. So I presume a lot of you here will probably either go onto a herd number or maybe even get your own herd numbers. But Stephen, I suppose the importance of getting a herd number in time, as you said, very important.
Yeah, just to have it there and ready to go. Like, and there's always some little fine details that'll take a couple of weeks or months to sort out, making different phone calls and things like that. And I'm sure Sarah there probably knows all about it now too as well. But just, I suppose, knowing what you want to do and getting it started in time and making the best use then of what's available to you after you get it. Like, there'll be several different grants and applications and that'll be available to you once you get something in your name, like, and away you go then after that, and there's the world's your oyster then once you have it.
I suppose technology as well, Stephen, every year, along with, research and advisory and all that, you're doing a lot of different things here on the farm in relation to low emission slurry spreading, clover, reduced age of slaughter is a massive one that you've really improved on in the last number of years.
Yeah, so I suppose it's probably one of the main methods that Teagasc has set out, a way of reducing the carbon footprint that the country as a whole has signed up to by 2030. Like, it's reducing that age of slaughter by 3 months over the next few years. Newford here, back since the very start, 8 years ago, was well ahead of the curve on that. We were always back at somewhere between 20 and 22 months, and it's gone back further now in the last few years, with 18, 19, 20 months for heifers and bullocks. Like, so there's massive benefits across the board, not only for the environment or carbon credentials or anything like that, but also I suppose farm efficiencies yourself. Like I was saying there in the stand earlier on, getting an animal gone, whether it be a heifer or a bullock or anything else, at 19 or 20 months, especially in a spring calving system, means that you're avoiding the second winter. So myself and Aisling were standing over beyond, so all the cattle in that shed now will be finished over the next week or 10 days, but at the moment, as you look around the yard there, you see all the sheds are full, and I still have all the weanlings out of grass, but like, getting them cattle gone now gives me space straight away to bring in my weanling cattle next week or the week after, whenever the weather would break, if needed be. But it just means you're making maximum use of your sheds, like there's no shed left empty, and them cattle are gone out of the way, so there's benefits across the board. Also, they're obviously around the place for a shorter period of time, they're eating less silage, less meal, everything else, like, so it's benefits all around, yeah.
Very good. And Sarah also mentioned, I suppose, the importance of work experience. And I know a lot of you will probably go on, do work placement. The importance of maybe doing it in a place that you like, doing something that you're interested in is obviously very important as well. Danny, I think you had a very interesting work placement. It's not everyone that gets to go to Tennessee, Nashville. I'm sure the nightlife wasn't bad either, was it? Or was it all strictly tillage?
Strictly tillage now, it was all work. I got to spend a few weeks in first year with a local spud man, so like we're primarily just cereals, wheat and barley is kind of our bread and butter. We don't dabble in potatoes, but a local potato man, I got to spend a few weeks with him, which was great to see, because even from being from kind of that big tillage country, I couldn't tell you much about spuds, so I got to learn a lot there. But in second year, I got to spend 5 months just outside of Nashville, Tennessee, so that was savage. The work was savage too, but it was nice to kind of see how it's done in a totally different scale to here. But even to bring it back home, there's a lot that does correlate between the two. Like there is still the similarities. It was a family farm I was on. It wasn't some big, Monsanto-owned company farm. It was still a family farm at the end of the day. Even if they're on 4,000 acres versus, an average tillage farm here, the kind of premise of a family farm still does remain the same.
Very good. Cora, maybe just to go back to yourself there, you obviously, I've learned an awful lot in relation to the different cuts of animals there. We were looking at the table there, the importance, I suppose, of farmers sending cattle in the correct spec to factories is obviously very important in relation to, fat cover and hitting your markets as well. Looking at the front page of the Irish Independent there yesterday, there's a forecast of a big reduction in a kill next year. I suppose in relation to maybe markets and maybe what you've learned, the importance, I suppose, of markets abroad and that. I suppose, what have you learned maybe in relation to markets and that as well?
Yeah, in fairness, what we've done a couple of times with farmers coming in is we've looked from basically when they come into the slaughter hall down the line into the bone hall and stuff as well, and it gives you just a better visual of the yields that are coming off the carcasses, and you can see the fat cover on them, and you can also check the carcass labels to see what age range they are, if they're under 30 months, what breed they are and things like that. And just whenever I was at the stand earlier, there was an example there of what it looks like for the customer as well on the retail shelf, so you can kind of see how important it is to make sure you have a good distribution of fat on your animals coming in, and just the effect that that'll have on the cuts coming off, like the strip lines and the fillets and things like that, because different customers will have different requirements, so they might ask for things like fat on or fat off, or fillet chain on, chain off, things like that, and they'll have their own weight ranges as well. So in terms of even through the packaging and retail things, it's just really important for farmers trying to have their cattle within spec also.
Great, very good. And Sarah, I suppose you've obviously done your degree. Hopefully next year or in the next few months you'll be finishing up the PhD. I suppose, where do you see yourself maybe using the knowledge maybe going forward, or what would you like to do in the future?
So it's always a hard question for anyone to answer, I think that, but I suppose one thing I will say is I've gained such a wide set of skills through the PhD. So as I said, like I'm outside, I'm doing bits of farming, you're involved in research, and then you come inside, so you kind of do have, you understand the need for precision and the need for, I suppose, repetition and different things, and then you also understand the need to write things up and so that they're legible for people of all, I suppose, backgrounds, if it's from science, if it's from a farm. So I've kind of gained a lot of knowledge, not necessarily all agricultural knowledge or beef production knowledge, but I think what I've learned about myself is that I'd rather a more technical role. I see myself maybe not sitting at a desk. See myself maybe being involved, particularly in cattle. It's interesting work, it's rewarding work. So I suppose to answer your question, something more hands-on and a technical role. That's kind of where I see myself in the next, hopefully a year's time.
Very good. Danny, you're finished up the winter sowing there in the last couple of days, you're saying. What were you up to in the last couple of weeks?
I was just there on Sunday, we wrapped up the sowing, so I was saying to you, it was probably one of the best sowing campaigns we've had in years, thank God, because the last couple were just desperate, especially after the last 2 harvests. They haven't been quite so good, so we kind of needed a bit of a break. So the last couple of weeks were flat out sowing, and we got it all in good conditions, thank God. So we don't even have much spring crops now to even put in come the springtime, because just where we're situated in North Kildare, it's great ground for growing winter wheat and winter barley. So the more winter crops we can get in, the better for us. So going off, say, last year as a comparison, we didn't get in a lot of the winter crops we'd like to get in. So then we had to kind of make a sacrifice on our part and put in spring crops, which, like I said, it's just not quite so suited for our ground. It much prefers a good winter crop. So I suppose it's nice to have that book closed now for the year, have it all in good conditions. And should I say, well sown is half grown. So we'll see you next summer.
Very good. And maybe Stephen there, you gave a good talk there earlier in relation to the cattle and that. I suppose there's a lot of people here maybe, unsure of maybe what path they want. You said yourself you didn't really fancy a 9-to-5 office job or whatever. I suppose what advice would you give to maybe some of the students here today, maybe thinking of becoming maybe a farm manager or maybe, a hands-on job? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. You said it there about 5 minutes ago, Keith, about you must do something that you're interested in, and you have to care about it. Like, 'cause if you don't care, which is no good for anyone. When you don't care, what you'll do is get up and walk out of the exam maybe 20 minutes or half an hour early and leave an answer that should be on the page inside in your head. Or if you're a farmer, you might walk out the gate some evening and leave it up behind you, or maybe not check that bottom pen of cows, and you'll have a calf on the slats or something like that. Or even if you're in industry, then if you're an advisor like yourself, you'll know if you don't care, like, you might do an application there and you do it wrong and you'll cost a farmer 6, 8 or 10,000 in an application fine or something. So whatever you do, you have to care about it. That's the most important thing. That's the only thing really. If you care about it, you'll do it right, like, or at least you'll do it as best you can, like. And I suppose the best way of knowing what you're good at or what to do is to use the work experience and go off and maybe try a few different things, and you won't be long, like Danny was saying there, you won't be long finding out what you do and what you don't like. Even Cora there on the grad programme saying that she got around to 5 or 6 different parts of the business in 12 months, like, and it's very easy to suss out then what's for you and what's not, like. So.
And maybe just Cora there as well, just to mention a bit on the graduate programme. I suppose there's an array of different graduate programmes, a lot of different companies out there. I suppose it must be great to try a bit of everything, as we say, in relation to sales, procurement, obviously operations and that. I suppose which parts of, or what areas did you really like yourself, or did you find yourself like in a certain area that you thought you mightn't like?
Yeah, to be honest, it was the operations at the start that I thought I wouldn't take to. I was kind of more driven, like, I'll learn this quick now and try to get up into the sales office, and then it was the opposite then. When I got into the sales office, I wanted to come back down onto the floor. But I also got to spend a bit of time with our procurement team, and went to local client farms and local marts and things like that, which was just good for my own understanding as well, for even like finishing cattle at home and things like that. It was just another bit of insight on things. And other areas that you kind of dip into as well, food quality and safety, we'd be helping them get ready for audits and things like that. That was also really good, just to get up to scratch on the kind of standards of food health and safety within all the areas and operations. But the first few weeks I definitely didn't think I'd like to be an operations graduate, but after a while then I just kind of preferred observing processes, and with the lean management then looking at how you can try to improve things and see where there's waste occurred and things like that, and just working with the people every day just keeps it interesting as well. You're not stuck on your own or anything like that, so those things I enjoyed.
Very good. And I suppose Danny there, would say maybe some of the students here might be very interested in the tillage sector, but maybe they may not have a big enough farm maybe to go at it full time. I suppose what advice would you give them, or what other areas can you see where there are jobs in the tillage sector for people maybe that are interested in the tillage sector?
Well, from a seasonal point of view, I think every tillage farmer is short of staff when things get busy, whether that's kind of from July when the combine gets rolling until still when we're sowing. I think every farmer needs more staff. That's from a seasonal point of view, but from an actual, not saying that that's not a career, because it definitely is. We've lads working for us who kind of started with us when they just finished school, and now we'd be absolutely lost without them when it comes to workshop work and general field work as well. But like I said, the plan would be that the sector will be expanding. That's definitely what we hope. So I think that would open up more jobs in a lot of the merchants, say the likes of the Tiarlawn, Brennan's, Kieran, some of those kind of merchants who are buying seed, and not to mention then the likes of the different growers, the seed producers like Seed Tech, Drummonds, etc. So I suppose through the different courses like crops and machinery, going through the placement, that gives a great insight into what different careers there are out there beyond. I mean, like, I love driving a tractor, but beyond that, if that's not your thing, if you wanted to go into the market side of things, the seed production side of things, there is, the same as any other sector in agriculture, there is an unlimited amount of opportunities. And like I said, I'd hope in the coming years that it does grow more and more, hopefully.
Very good. Maybe Sarah there, there's a lot of people doing level 5, 6, 7s here. I suppose, what advice would you give maybe to someone that may be interested in doing maybe a master's or a PhD? It's obviously very tough going. There's a lot in it, I presume, in relation to PhD, recording data, but maybe a quick synopsis maybe for anyone that may be interested in continuing on and doing a PhD. What advice would you give those students?
So I suppose the main advice I give is make sure you have an interest in it and make sure you care about what you're doing. So as I kind of mentioned earlier, when I was picking a PhD, I knew I wanted to do a PhD, but I wasn't just going to take anyone. It's something that you're living with for 4 years. You're absorbing every bit of information you can get. For me, I was happy to be outside. I was happy to be cutting grass. I was happy to be weighing cattle. But I suppose find out what you're interested in. For me, I knew I enjoyed suckler farming. I also knew I enjoyed dairy farming from my uncle's farm, but I kind of knew my interests lied with suckler. So that comes back to, I suppose, placement again, picking placements that you can kind of figure out if you're interested in that area, if maybe you're more interested in a different area. As I said, you're living with it. Particularly when you're at trial work, you're kind of doing long days. You could be in for 7 in the morning, you mightn't get home till 7 in the evening, maybe later. So it's very important that you're interested in what you're doing. The jobs might be kind of, for example, grass cuts might be a little bit repetitive. They might be a little bit tedious, but the work that you're doing, it can't be overstated enough that the work you're doing is very important. It has to be done right. It has to be accurate. So again, you're not going to be caring about that work unless you have an interest in it. So same goes for masters. There's research masters out there as well, and there's also your taught masters. So I 100% would say your main thing is you need to have an interest in your topic. If that's grassland, if it's tillage, if it's beef, sheep, dairy, whatever it is. And even within that, make sure you have an interest in your area. So is it the more sciencey side? Is it the kind of for example, looking at worms in cattle, or is it something like grassland production? So just interest is your main, interest in care, and patience maybe too.
Very good. We'd like to thank you very much. It's great to see such positivity, and obviously you're doing phenomenally well for such a young age as well. So we wish you all the best. Thanks very much. We'll be watching all the updates from Stephen and the paper, and he's sending his cattle to Cora and she's processing them, and Danny has grown the feed for the nuts, and all the research in the meantime has been done by Sarah. So it's kind of like, it's nearly like a jigsaw in that you can see all the different parts of agriculture. You have your research, you're growing the crops, you're feeding the animals, and you're processing the animals. So it just really shows, I suppose, how we're all dependent on each other in the different sectors and that as well. So I'd like to maybe give a round of applause to the team. Now, unless Stephen wants to sing a song from Tumivara, I think we're going to wrap it up. But thanks very much for coming as well, and thanks to all the gang for all the support.